Get involved with Channel 2's Food for Families. From
ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. President Reagan hardly had time to savor his victory over Walter Mondale last night before he was faced again with tension in Central America. Today, the administration says it is concerned about possible new military developments in Nicaragua. Are there or are there not Soviet fighter aircraft arriving there? We begin with ABC's John McWethy.
In the last 24 hours, the U.S. government has privately warned the Soviet Union, in both Washington and Moscow, that it would be a very big mistake for the Soviets to deliver high-performance jet aircraft to Nicaragua, if such jet aircraft are indeed aboard a Russian ship that docked today in a Nicaraguan port. The Sandinista government in Nicaragua also got a warning.
We have informed them that for them to bring something that is absolutely unnecessary to them, these high-performance craft in here, indicates that they are contemplating being a threat to their neighbors here in the Americas.
And while the president was speaking, the CIA was notifying the intelligence committees in Congress of a, quote, potentially serious development in Nicaragua, a development the CIA has been tracking for more than a month. In early October, American spy satellites observed a Soviet merchant vessel called the Bakurayani loading military supplies at the Russian Black Sea port of Nikolaev. As one satellite flew over the port, a dozen large crates were photographed at dockside. Crates of the size, shape, and markings of those that normally carry disassembled MiG jet fighters. When American spy satellites next photographed the port, the crates were gone, and so was the ship. It is assumed that the crates were loaded onto the ship and that the MiGs were inside the crates, but intelligence sources stress they know neither fact for sure. The ship sailed through the Mediterranean into the Atlantic. Instead of going through the Panama Canal, where its cargo would be inspected, it took the long route around South America and is now at Nicaragua's main port called Corinto. At a press conference today, Nicaraguan Foreign Minister Descoto denied that his country is taking delivery of MiG fighters. He claimed that the U.S. is trying to start a war, that an American warship today violated Nicaragua's territorial waters, and that the Corinto port was overflown by U.S. spy planes at least twice this morning.
No boat has arrived on Nicaragua, either now nor at any time in the past, bringing MiG airplanes.
U.S. officials deny that an American ship was anywhere near the port, but confirm that U.S. spy planes have been very busy and are regularly overflying Nicaraguan territory. In fact, last week, an SR-71 spy plane, one of the fastest aircraft on Earth, was ordered to come in low under the cloud cover so it could get a good picture of a Bulgarian freighter that was then unloading weapons. At supersonic speed, the SR-71 flew over the port of El Bluff, and then at low altitude, leaving a window-shattering sonic boom in its wake, the plane rocketed across the entire country. From that mission, the U.S. learned that Nicaragua had just taken delivery of at least 8 top-of-the-line Soviet Hind helicopters. These are among the world's fastest helicopters, routinely flying more than 200 miles an hour. They are heavily armed, capable of shooting down other helicopters or planes and of destroying targets on the ground. But the Reagan administration, while noting the arrival of new helicopters, is focusing on what it fears will be the next step up the line. Officials say Nicaragua should make no mistake about it. Ronald Reagan will not allow high-performance jet fighters to be based in Nicaragua. And if necessary, he will use U.S. military force to make sure it does not happen. John McWethy, ABC News, the State Department.
Late today, the government of Nicaragua took some reporters and cameramen out over what they say are their own territorial waters to photograph this U.S. ship. This is the one that the Foreign Minister, Miguel Descoto, referred to as being in violation of Nicaraguan territorial waters. There are, of course, no pictures of the aircraft, which Washington acknowledges flew over Nicaraguan territory. By the way, there will be more about the Nicaraguan-American tension later this evening on Nightline, and the Nicaraguan Foreign Minister will be one of Ted Koppel's guests. The Soviet Union today took note of the president's re-election, you might say, in 2 ways. First, there was a telegram from the Kremlin offering congratulations and expressing the hope for better relations. And then, by coincidence, there was an enormous parade of Soviet military might through Moscow's Red Square. The Soviets are marking the 67th anniversary of the Russian Revolution. The Soviet Defense Minister, Dmitry Ustinov, was unable to review the troops. The Kremlin says he is ill. Later in this broadcast, President Reagan after the landslide. Walter Mondale, the message didn't take. and the new Congress just a little more Republican.
This is World News Tonight, brought to you by Sears.
Look out. It's Levi's Days at Sears right now. Everybody come save on genuine Levi's denims. More Levi's jeans for your $1 at Sears. Men's jeans now $15.99. Big boys jeans $11.99. Plus women's bend-over pants now $14.99. A lot of Levi's jeans on sale this week at Sears. Come and get them.
There's more for your life
Levi's Days
at Sears.
It has come to our attention that a few of you still think all Buicks are nice big cars. So here's a little reminder. Skyhawk. And for the handful who believe all Buicks are smooth and comfortable but not racy enough, a quick answer. Skyhawk. Just when you think you know all there is to know about Buick, we throw you a curve. Now, wouldn't you really rather have a Buick?
And now to the politics of yesterday. There was no doubt about the size, the proportion of Mr. Reagan's victory. He won the popular vote by a margin of 18%. He won the electoral vote by the second largest margin in modern American politics. Mr. Mondale's 13 electoral votes came only from Minnesota, his home state, and the District of Columbia. Well, today the questions are all about mandate. Does the president have one or not? And what does the president have in mind for the next 4 years? ABC's Sam Donaldson is with Mr. Reagan in California.
President Reagan, meeting briefly today with reporters, delivered his analysis of the election. It was short, simple, and for him, of course, sweet.
Well, I feel that the people of this country made it very plain that they approved what we've been doing. And we're going to continue what we've been doing, and if need be, we'll take our case to the people.
One of the top priorities is cutting the budget some more. Except for defense and Social Security, everything will be examined for cuts. But the president promised the poor would be protected.
What we've called the safety net is still a top priority with us, and we're going to maintain that safti net. Now,
on the subject of tax reform, the president said he still can't reveal his plans since he still hasn't received recommendations from the Treasury Department. But he did continue to insist on one key point.
There's nothing for me to reveal now except that my position is solid. We're not going to try to deal with the deficit problem by raising taxes.
Aides conceded that getting more budget cuts and tax reform through Congress will be tough. They made no claim to have acquired a working majority in the House. But the president's campaign director delivered what sounded like a warning to House Democrats.
I think that in a lot of congressional districts around this country that voted Democrats, if they don't support the president, and the president ran got 60 or 70% of the vote, you can always go back to the grassroots as he did in 1981-82.
If the president has to take his case to the people, apparently will not be by way of more frequent press conferences.
Have you fit yourself to a regular press conference schedule now that you're re-elected?
Look, I won. I don't have to subject myself to...
Everyone laughed, but few smiled. And with that, the president was off to his ranch near Santa Barbara, taking along a new book to read, The Real War by Richard M. Nixon. So the second term will be devoted to pressing the program begun in the first, and with many of the same people doing it. Aides say they expect few top personnel changes, since the president has already let it be known he sees no reason to break up a winning team. Sam Donaldson, ABC News, Santa Barbara.
Vice President Bush returned to Washington today from Houston, surrounded by staff members with buttons that read 12 more years. Mr. Bush said he hasn't decided yet whether to run for president in 1988, and he doesn't plan to make that decision for, as he put it, a long time. Walter Mondale met with reporters in Minnesota today, and for the last time in the 1984 campaign, he was asked to explain why things had gone so badly. ABC's Britt Hume has been with him from the beginning.
Looked his staggering defeat in the eye, smiled, and went before a valedictory news conference to say he had no regrets and no plans to run for office again. He had no excuses either.
From the very beginning of my campaign for the nomination, I seemed to have trouble convincing young Americans and others that I had that vision of the future that I believe I have.
Mondale said he had failed to appeal to independent and moderate voters and failed to make the case that a president must master the facts. While he typically cited his own failures first, there were other reasons some may find more compelling.
I was running against an incumbent president with the strength of the incumbency, who was very popular, is very popular personally, very well liked, in the midst of what is perceived as good economic times, and with diminished international tensions, and with an electorate that understandably was anxious for some continuity.
With self-effacing humor, Mondale cited another disadvantage in this race, his TV presence.
I think, I've never really warmed up to television. And in fairness to television, it's never really warmed up to me.
He also gave a sense of why, despite the magnitude of his loss, he seems at peace.
I did my best, and I worked my heart out, and I was the nominee of the Democratic Party, and I made my case with all the strength I could.
Then the Louisville Slugger, Mondale's campaign plane, nicknamed for his strong performance in the Louisville debate, made its final flight to Washington, where Mondale will now practice law. He was joined there by his running mate. He thanked her, and she thanked him, and said she had no regrets either. Mondale then got into his car to ride away, if not into the sunset, at least into the sunshine. He and his family leave tomorrow for the Virgin Islands. He couldn't resist a last wisecrack. Britt Hume, ABC News, Washington.
There was all sorts of talk before the election about voter registration and a get-out-the-vote drive. Well, now that the voting is over, we can tell you there were 4 million more voters this year than in 1980. But as a percentage of the voting age population, there was almost no change from 4 years ago. During the course of yesterday's voting, by the way, we questioned almost 100,000 people. And ABC's Barry Sarafin has an update on why people voted as they did.
President Reagan not only won in all regions of the country, he won among both men and women, all age groups and all income groups, except the poor, those making less than $10,000 a year. Despite the efforts of organized labor on Walter Mondale's behalf, Mr. Reagan took 45% of the Union vote to 54% for the challenger, a little better showing than he made 4 years ago with blue-collar voters. It appears there may have been as many as 1 million more Hispanics voting this time, but Mr. Reagan did better with them, too, pulling 44% of the Hispanic vote, about half again what he got in 1980. Black voters went for Mondale by a margin of nearly 9-1, but despite intensive registration efforts, their share of yesterday's vote appears to have actually dropped slightly from 4 years ago, from 9 to 8%. 63% of white voters favored the incumbent, 37% the challenger. Most voters said Mondale's choice of a woman for running mate was not important in casting their ballot. But among those who said it was, there was a gender gap. Women who thought it was important went for Mondale 2-1. Men to whom it mattered voted for Mr. Reagan by a substantial margin. It appears that many Democrats stayed home. Democratic turnout was down from 4 years ago, while Republican turnout shot up. About 5.5 million more Republicans voted this time. Twice as many voters described themselves as conservatives than called themselves liberals.
The things that worked for and against the candidates during the campaign did again yesterday, with President Reagan seen as a strong leader who will keep this country strong and prosperous, Mondale as a weak leader and big spender with an unpopular tax increase proposal. Young voters joined their elders in voting for the president, and as for Mr. Reagan's age, 9 out of 10 voters said it didn't matter, making it an even smaller issue than it was 4 years ago. Barry Sarafin, ABC News, New York.
When we come back, the president's coattails, not long enough to carry everyone.
Morning. Shall we get down to business? Now that you've joined us, you'll enjoy numerous rights and privileges, but you will share certain problems as well. Specifically, you owe the United States government, in round numbers, $50,000.
If federal deficits continue at their current rate, it's as if every baby born in 1985 will have a $50,000 debt strapped to its back.
Let us review these figures for you.
At W.R. Grace & Company, we're not looking for someone to blame. We're too busy crying out for help. Write to Congress. If you don't think that'll do it, run for Congress.
Now, if you'll just sign here.
The last thing we want now is our kids following in our footsteps. For a free booklet on government waste and federal deficits, call 1-800-USA-DEBT. At W.R. Grace, we want all of us to stay one step ahead of a changing world.
Something wrong, Mindy. Since I switched to rice-a-roni bread stuffing, everybody raves about it. And I worked all day on the rest of the meal.
Everything was delicious. It's just that rice-a-roni bread stuffing has real chicken flavor, seasonings, toasted breadcrumbs.
More great stuffing, Mom.
See what I mean?
So switch to rice-a-roni bread stuffing. Goes with any dish. It's not just for stuffing anymore.
And now to the Congress, which clearly didn't change hands in the numbers that some Republicans were forecasting before you went to the polls. The House of Representatives remains under Democratic control, even though Republicans had a net gain of 14 seats. But remember, in 1982, Republicans lost almost twice that number. ABC's Charles Gibson has been trying to determine just what the change might mean for Congress and for the President.
A Republican victory party. There were more of them for House candidates last night than there were 2 years ago, but there weren't enough of them to make Republicans truly happy. The President's win was overwhelming, but Republican wins in the House were not.
I don't think people can expect that we're going to have the kind of victories that we had in 81 and 82, because the numbers simply are not there. And for that, I regret that.
It's my belief that there is no mandate out there, that the Democratic members of the Congress are there as a watchdog and a safeguard, and that's what we intend to be.
In so many states, Democratic House candidates had so much to overcome. Consider Connecticut. The President won the state by 22 percentage points, but he couldn't carry 3rd District Republican Larry DeNardis with him. Democrat Bruce Morrison, faced with the need to get nearly 1 out of 4 Reagan voters to vote for him, did it. Morrison won by 14,000 votes. Indeed, what Reagan coattails there were no match for the power of incumbency. 408 incumbent House members ran for re-election last night. 391 of them won. That's 96%. A couple of incumbents who lost: George Hansen, the congressman facing a jail term for filing false financial disclosure forms. He lost by only 66 votes. Dan Crane, the Illinois congressman censured for an affair with a female congressional page, also defeated. While Gary Studs, the Massachusetts congressman censured for an affair with a male page, was re-elected. A couple of issues could be affected. Recent votes on the MX in the House have been very close. The MX could have more support now, as could the President's desire to fund the secret war in Nicaragua. And there are inevitably new budget battles brewing. Ronald Reagan said he wouldn't raise taxes. House Democrats said last night they wouldn't vote for new taxes, predicting the President would drown in red ink. But thoughts of issues are for the future. For now, the winning Republicans are out thanking voters for their gains, modest though they are. Charles Gibson, ABC News, Washington.
Congress, by the way, doesn't come back to work until January. Among the 33 Senate races, voters decided to send 7 new senators to Washington. Some familiar faces will be gone, including the 2-term Democrat Walter Huddleston of Kentucky and the 1-term Republican Roger Jepsen of Iowa. Before the election, the Republicans had control of the Senate, and they still do, even though the party suffered a net loss of 2 seats. The biggest change in the Senate is taking place at the top of a very important committee. Here's ABC's Sander Van Oker.
Jesse Helms' successful bid for a 3rd Senate term from North Carolina. Charles Percy's unsuccessful bid for a 4th term from Illinois. Both could have a far-reaching effect on U.S. foreign policy. Percy, a moderate, was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Helms, a right-wing conservative, is now next in line to succeed him. But Helms would have to give up his chairmanship of the Agriculture Committee, something he said he won't do.
And let me say this. If North Carolina loses that chairmanship, North Carolina will also lose the tobacco and peanut programs.
If Helms doesn't take foreign relations, next in line is Indiana's Richard Lugar. But he wants to be majority leader, so the chairmanship could go to Charles Mathias of Maryland, a Republican moderate. Unacceptable to the Republican right, which would urge Helms to take foreign relations as a way of blocking Mathias.
For, the sake of his country and in the free world, my personal preference would be to see him take the position as chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
If Helms did take foreign relations, he could be helpful to the president, especially if Ronald Reagan reverted to his pre-election campaign view of the Soviet Union as an evil empire, or if the president wished to step up covert actions against the Nicaraguan Sandinistas. Whether Helms takes foreign relations or not, he very likely would become, during Ronald Reagan's 2nd term, more powerful than he is now, not just in the Senate, but within the Republican Party as well. Sander Van Oker, ABC News, Washington.
The Democrats have easily retained their overwhelming majority in state houses around the country. They had 20 more governors than the Republicans before yesterday. Now that is down only by 1 to 19. Late today, in a very close contest, ABC News projected that Democrat Madeleine Kunin is the winner in Vermont. She becomes the second governor who is a woman. The other is Martha Lane Collins of Kentucky. When we come back, Wall Street reacting to the Reagan victory.
You don't need a big vacuum with lots of extras. You need big cleaning power. So at Regina, we got rid of the extras. The expensive ones went, the heavy ones did too. What we got was a lightweight, one that cleans just like a big vacuum. And the clincher, it costs less. We called it the Regina Power Team. Consumer Reports called it, quote, the only lightweight that was an adequate substitute for a full-sized vacuum, unquote. The Regina Power Team. All the cleaning power without all the extras.
Aerodynamic design. Form that follows function. Optimal thrust. Intelligence. Elegance. Every inch, every edge, engineered to perfection. The shape of things to come has come. The Audi 5000S. Sedan, wagon, turbo. Audi. The art of engineering.
America was born with a dream. A dream that says, in this great land, each and every one of us has the opportunity to build a life that's rich and rewarding. At Prudential Bates Securities, we believe in that dream. We can show you how total financial planning can bring you a richer life for today and tomorrow. Call us. We're Prudential Bates Securities. America, bring us your future.
Okay, now you all wear dentures. Tell me what your problems are.
Slipping.
Seeds under my plate.
Denture adhesives. Creams can ooze.
And they can taste terrible. Okay, that's why Johnson & Johnson created Secure Denture Adhesive. Secure is a paper-thin adhesive seal. Moisten your dentures and it covers them like a security blanket. Then dissolves to form a custom-fitted bond between your dentures and your gums.
Well, no problems with slipping.
Or seeds. No problem. The stuff's terrific. Get Secure and help make denture problems no problem.
Well, Wall Street today greeted President Reagan's landslide victory with a shrug. The Dow Jones Industrial Average actually went down nearly 11 points, and there was fairly heavy trading. More about Wall Street and the election on tonight's Money Matters. Here's our economics editor, Dan Kortz.
Today's surprising decline came in spite of a cut in the prime rate to 11.75%. Since investors overwhelmingly favored Mr. Reagan, the election results ought to be a bonanza for the market, right? Not according to the historical record. Since World War II, there have been 5 Republican presidential terms, 2 for Eisenhower, Nixon, Nixon-Ford, and Reagan. In the first year of every one of those terms, stock prices took a tumble, an average loss of 11.9%. By contrast, during 3 of the 4 Democratic presidents' first years in office, the market went up by an average of 14.2%.
Democratic administrations have had the good fortune of being empowered during fairly good periods of time for our economy.
But experts for Standard & Poor's, who did a recent study of presidential elections and the market, think the pattern is about to change.
The Republicans could become the party of at least equal, if not slightly better economic growth, at least equal, if not slightly better stock market performance, but running a bigger risk of inflation.
A lot of traders here on the floor of the stock exchange share that optimism. So in spite of today's slump in prices, the Reagan landslide is still welcome and bullish news on Wall Street. Dan Kortz, ABC News, New York.
If you were waiting to watch another launch of the Space Shuttle Discovery this morning, you know it was canceled because of dangerous winds. Discovery is now scheduled to fly tomorrow. The liftoff may be seen live on Good Morning America. Here is a much more unusual announcement from NASA. The space agency said today that Utah Senator Jake Garn, who was not up for re-election, will go up on a future shuttle mission. Senator Garn happens to chair a subcommittee which provides funds for NASA. When we come back, more complaints about our projections.
Come along. We're going to try to find a banker. To be called a banker, you know, you've had to have had very special training in the management of people's money. Don't see any bankers here. Bankers have hundreds of years of banking tradition to back them up. No bankers here. And bankers offer the newest ideas to help your money grow. There is one catch. The only place you'll find a banker is the bank.
A message from America's full-service banks.
Car repairs, guaranteed for life. Only participating Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealers guarantee thousands of repairs for as long as you own your car. You pay for a covered repair once, never again. Because the dealer who did the work will fix it free. Free parts, free labor, for life.
No charge.
Terrific. The lifetime service guarantee, only from Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealers. We fix cars for keeps.
Mitsubishi believes you put a better picture on television by putting better thinking inside. Technology so extraordinary, it produces a color television picture that is incredibly rich, incredibly vivid. Whether you're watching in your living room, your den, or with 50,000 of your closest friends.
Tonight on Nightline, the flap over U.S. intelligence reports the Soviets may have sent MiG-21s to Nicaragua. Just posturing or a real confrontation?
Finally, this evening, there were complaints again last night that network projections in the presidential race discouraged some people from voting in states where the polls were still open. ABC's Gary Shepard is in California.
CBS News estimates that Ronald Reagan has been re-elected president.
We now project the winner in Michigan to be Mr. Reagan, which gives him the electoral votes to make him president for a second term.
NBC News now is able to project the re-election of Ronald Wilson Reagan, the 73-year-old president of the United States, the winner of this contest with Walter Fritz Mondale.
By 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, all three television networks had declared Ronald Reagan the winner, even though the polls wouldn't be closing in the Pacific time zone for another 2.5 hours. There were hundreds, perhaps thousands of protest calls from irate voters to their local TV stations.
Is this regarding the early projection by the network?
Washington Secretary of State Ralph Monroe says he can't prove it yet, but he's convinced it had an effect on voters.
This time the projection came so early that everybody west of the Mississippi still had polls open. I think it's just terribly unfair, and it's basically having your ballot open before you have a chance to cast it.
The Registrar of Voters in Los Angeles says there was no drop-off in the voter turnout after the network projections, but a poll taken last night tells a different story.
We found out that approximately 7% of those people who had not yet voted and had heard of the projection indicated that they were not going to go and vote.
Network executives defended their handling of the election results, saying to withhold the obvious news would undermine journalistic responsibility.
We really haven't seen any evidence that reporting of the Reagan landslide last night had an adverse effect on voter turnout.
Several congressmen and network news executives have proposed a solution: close all the polls nationwide at the same time, regardless of time zone. That idea is expected to receive considerable attention when Congress convenes next January. Gary Shepard, ABC News, Los Angeles.
And that is our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. For everyone at ABC News, good night.
From ABC, this has been World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Wednesday.